Theo. Theo says, reports are coming out that Dahlin is going to get an 8-year, $10.5 million contract. Am I crazy to think that's too high? Miro makes 8.4, Makar makes 9, and Fox and McAvoy both make 9.5. Wait, just give me a second. Both make 9.5. He's a stud, but geez, he's only had one elite season. So when looking at Rasmus Dahlin, yes, I think that he is going to be worth this. This is a massive, massive deal that is going to reset the defensive market, but he's worth it. He is a 23-year-old stud that, in my opinion, should have been a Norris finalist last year. He posted 73 points, fantastic results both ways. He was one of the best defensemen in the entire league. Yes, it has not been smooth sailing for him, but he's had to deal with playing for some pretty bad teams throughout his career to start. Basically every single year besides the years Jeff Skinner scored 40 points, and this year, obviously, they have been like a 60 to 70 point team. That's not ideal for a player's development. And you look at him, he is a defenseman. He started out in the league so young, and he showed so much promise, and it's finally led to this at age 22 to have a Norris finalist season. Yes, 10.5 is a lot, but when you look at Rasmus Dahlin, how important he was to this Buffalo Sabres team, I don't think you can let him go. You look at relative expected goals percentage, basically what your on-ice expected goals percentage is minus your off-ice. Every other Buffalo defenseman was in the negatives this year, even Owen Power, who I think is going to be a very good top-pairing defenseman eventually. But Rasmus Dahlin came in at 12.9%. He carried this defense core this year. Absolutely carried them. And overall, in terms of the Sabres, on the whole, he also led the entire Sabres team in relative expected goals percentage, just barely ahead of Jeff Skinner, just barely ahead of Tage Thompson, ahead of Alex Tuch. So he is so valuable to that team because right now, until Owen Power is that legit top pairing guy, he's really the only stud that they have back there. He's going to play 25, maybe even 26 minutes next year. He is essential to that team. He is the franchise player. He is what started this most recent rebuild post-Jack Eichel era. I guess Jack Eichel kind of counts, but he is the franchise piece. I don't think Tage Thompson's the franchise piece. I don't think Owen Power obviously is the franchise piece. He is your young 23-year-old franchise defenseman. Tage Thompson's going to be like 26 in a couple weeks. He is what he is. He's going to be 45, maybe 50 and 50. Rasmus Dahlin, you have a legit chance to get a Hall of Fame defenseman that can win multiple Norrises. So you lock him the hell up. And overall, in terms of the entire league, again, looking at that relative expected goals percentage, he was fourth in the entire league. I think Ottawa's defense was so bad that Chabot was so much ahead of the other defensemen that they had this year besides Jake Sanderson that's a little bit misleading. Shane Gothisbehere was playing in Arizona. They were utter garbage, so he played very well, but compared to the rest of his team, it wasn't that comparable. Adam Fox is fantastic, and Rasmus Dahlin came in at fourth. So again, I think right now he's safely a top 10 defenseman in the league. I don't think that's up for a debate. I think most people have him between probably the 5 and 8 range, with him only getting better over the next couple of years. So if he's going to be a top 5 defenseman in the next year or two, you got to pay him like that. And going forward, that is going to be $10.5 million because although, as you mentioned, Makar's only making $9 million, 4 years left. Fox and McAvoy, I think, have 6 years left at $9.5 million. It's a different ballgame. I've mentioned this 9,000 times on the show at this point, talking about the Sanderson, talking about the Matthews extension. The cap is going to go up. We're not in a flat cap system anymore. When those guys signed their deals, we were in a flat cap system. Makar signed it in like 2021, so there was still 2 more years of a flat cap system. So going forward, as the salary cap starts to increase, you get Dahlin at age 23. That deal is going to age very well as the salary cap increases. And again, Makar, when he's a free agent in 4 years, is going to get like $12, $13 million. So then Rasmus Dahlin, how do I mess the two up sometimes? But Rasmus Dahlin's $10.5 million is not going to look that bad. Probably they lock him up. Quinn Hughes is going to get $10.5, $11 million when he's up in 4 years. So it's just the rising tide of the salary cap. You lock him in, because if you don't lock him in this season, if you do not lock him in this season and he has another Norris caliber year, he's a Norris finalist, that number is going to be 11.25, maybe even 11.5. Because you look at it, even at a potential $10.5 million deal, he's still technically not the highest paid defenseman in the entire league. That would be Erik Karlsson, Drew Doughty, and obviously they're different scenarios because they signed their deals back in 2019 when the salary cap had not been affected yet. But Rasmus Dahlin getting this $10.5 million deal really would reset the market in terms of what teams are willing to pay a legit top 10, maybe top 5 defenseman in the future. I just realized I'm not recording. That's not good. But that's really not good. But in terms of what a franchise defenseman is worth going forward, I think in a year or two, franchise number 1 defenseman, it's going to be $9 to $9.5 million. Top 10 defenseman, $10 to $11 million. And then once you get to that Norris winner, when Makar's up in 4 years, we're going to be talking about $12 million. So when looking at Rasmus Dahlin, I think you just need to lock him up now. Maybe he does regress, but I think the regression for him at this point, what he's done, I know he's had some down years, but at this point, what he showed when he had a half-decent team around him this season, I think at worst you're looking at a 60, 65 point number 1. Top 12 to 18 defensemen in the league at $10.5 million. That would definitely be extremely steep, but again, that wouldn't be as bad as, say, a Drew Doughty right now making $11 million. Erik Karlsson obviously won the Norris, but he hasn't really lived up to his contract. So I think there's really not that much downside in locking up Rasmus Dahlin because you're going to have him for most of his prime. I think you just get that locked up, you get that signed and sealed, and just move the hell on. And you look at it as a Buffalo Sabres, they already have Tage Thompson at 7.14, Dylan Cousins at 7.1. So thankfully, because those deals were so good, although I do think a Rasmus Dahlin $10.5 million deal would be fair, they have some money to spend because they're going to get $3 to $4 million in surplus value off those guys over the next 7 years. So money is really not a problem with the Buffalo Sabres. They're not like a Toronto Maple Leafs right now, having to let Zach Hyman, Michael Bunting, like a bunch of players go. They are still in that stage where they can re-sign guys, even with Jeff Skinner making $9 million, even though he's kind of worth it last year. They can shell out big money to their stars, just lock them up, let the salary cap rise. Kevin Adams knows what he's doing. I'm not gonna doubt Kevin Adams. Dude's another stud. Dude has drafted fantastic, signed fantastic deals. But when you look at it, just pay Rasmus